Hey guys, Yips here coming with another video, and this one today is going to be about High Botanist Telearm. Now this is going to be one boss in the 10-part Nighthold series, and the reason I'm making this Nighthold series guide is because there's a lot of bosses in Nighthold, and there's a lot of things to worry about, and there's a lot of different stuff that you need to know for the bosses in Nighthold, and so I thought I'd come here today so maybe I can help you guys play a little bit better when you're starting to progress in these boss fights. Remember, this is the first time that I've been playing them, so no, while I'm not an expert on them, I think right now, especially after having done them once, I have a pretty good idea how to play the fights optimally. I kind of know what you should be doing. Whether or not I can execute it on one try, that's a whole other issue in itself, but I think this is a pretty good attempt on High Botanist that we had. And I wanted to kind of commentate over it and kind of tell you guys about the mechanics and tell you what sort of things you should be looking to do during the boss fight. Now, if you guys didn't know, High Botanist is a council fight, so basically what that means is he's going to have multiple versions of himself. There's going to be more than one target on the fight. This is going to go up to the 3-target fight with additional ads spawning. One of the ads, so another version of himself spawns at 75%. That's when you go up to 2 targets at 75% HP. And then finally 3-target phase when he hits 50%. Now they all share health, so basically you want to do as much damage as you can to all of them in order to burn this guy down. So let's talk about a few mechanics before we get into the actual video. So a couple of the mechanics for the fight are going to be having to do with the flowers that are spawning. So basically what happens is he's going to cast this thing that's going to go on somebody, and when it gets dispelled, 2 flowers are going to spawn. Now those 2 flowers are going to fixate onto 2 random people in your raid. And if they touch that person, basically they get the root debuff, and then when that gets dispelled, 2 more flowers spawn. So basically there's just going to be an infinite loop of flowers if you keep letting them touch people. So basically what this means is Blizzard is saying is you have to kill these flowers. So 2 flowers will spawn, you're going to have to kill them, move back to the boss, go on with your life. Now, things that you can do as an Affliction Warlock on these flowers. Now, the things that you can do are you can dot them for the Wrath of Consumption proc. Not only can you dot them for Wrath of Consumption, you can also drain soul them to get a soul shard refund back, so you can use that and dump that into the boss, so definitely worth your time to dot. Now, the other mechanic during this thing is going to be some flame orbs. Now, these flame orbs are going to spawn. There's going to be 3. We have them marked in the room as a triangle, and then I think 2 others like square and circle or something like that. I'm not sure. Either way, your group's going to burn one of them down really quickly, and what's going to happen is when it explodes, when you end up killing it, it's going to put a dot on your raid for 3 to 4 seconds, and then once that fades, you're going to kill another one, and then that one's going to explode and put a dot on your raid for 3 to 4 seconds, and then you don't kill the last one because it explodes on its own, and again it's going to put a dot on your raid. And the reason that you focus these is because if all 3 of them explode at the same time, it'll just put a 3 stack of the dot on your raid, and everyone will just be dying, and it'll be too much healing. So that's pretty much the fight. In the last phase, there's going to be some different pools on the ground and things like that your group's gonna have to avoid. It's gonna have all of the like the golden circles that are moving into each other to crush you, or having to deal with the big purple circle in the middle of the room that kills you. So basically, as an Affliction Warlock, you want to be working towards avoiding all of these boss mechanics while maximizing your DPS. And what I'm going to focus on is how to max your DPS on High Botanist. So let's just get into it. So basically, I'm running Soul Effigy and Wrath and Agony on this boss fight, and the reason I'm running Soul Effigy and Wrath and Agony is because on a 3-target fight, this is going to net me the most DPS on the 3-target, and since they share a health pool, it's going to be optimal for me to use this build in order to do as much boss DPS as possible. So some really important key concepts to focus on during this kill video, and to focus on while I'm talking about this, is going to be what I do in ad spawns, how I manage it, and how much I'm actually dumping UAs onto the boss. So you can see as soon as these ad spawns, I'm really focusing on them, but I'm focusing on them in a specific way. I'm not just randomly dotting them to kill them. What I'm actually doing is I put corruption on them just to tag each mob, okay? So what I do first is I tag each mob to gain my Wrath of Consumption buff. You can see that in the top right corner, and now I try to maintain Wrath of Consumption the best I can during the fight. But not only do I corruption each of them, after I corruption each of them, what I'm doing, especially in phase 1 where there's only a 1-target fight, you can actually end up UAing the little flowers, because when the flowers die, you get the refund from the UA if it's still on the target. And I also drain soul the lowest flower to get shard refunds from both of them. So you can see I dot both the flowers, I refresh my dots on the boss, I get back to the flowers, you see I UA them, I drain soul the low one so I can get a shard back, and then I just dump those shards that I used on them on the boss. So you see I was at a lower shard count, but since I drained soul, I got some shards back, plus my agony's ticking, and now I have that Wrath of Consumption boss. I can use those to dump into the boss. So you can see I'm just avoiding the green circle or the circles that are spawning and things like that. So that's really basically the gist of the fight. Like, that's basically how you want to be playing it. Is you're gonna have a bunch of UAs to deal with. You're gonna have a bunch of shards and things like that you're gonna need to get out as efficiently as possible. So every single time that these ads spawn, you're gonna want to be dotting them, tagging them. You're gonna want to be drain slowing to get that shard refund back, especially in phase 1 when there's not a lot going on. So the second ad here spawns in phase 2 now, and this is going to be where all of these red circles are going to be coming around in the room. So not only are you going to have the flower thing to deal with, but you're also going to have these red circle thing. Now the red circle things tend to die really quickly on heroic, so I wasn't focusing them too much, but you definitely want to make sure if your group is having trouble killing them, you focus them a lot more than I was. But you want to be dotting them for the Wrath of Consumption buff. You see the Wrath of Consumption buff up in the top right hand corner for me. I tend to do a pretty good job of keeping it up during the raid, especially because it rotates between flower spawning and the orbs, and flower spawning and the orbs. So basically what happens is I can tag these flowers, I can tag these orbs, I can get my Wrath of Consumption, and with that Wrath of Consumption I can turn around the boss and hit it for super high amounts. Now you're wondering, once you get into this 2 target phase, why aren't you still drain slowing the ads? The reason I'm not drain slowing the ads is because my shard count is so high and there's so many things for me to dot. I'm only ever going to drain soul if there's nothing for me to do. And there's very rarely on this fight going to be nothing for me to do, because there's just so many dots to maintain. There's so many things I need to do. You see here I'd end up casting and drain soul because I have a little bit of time, but all these flowers spawn. I have to turn to them. I have to dot them. I have to kill them with my group, because otherwise we're going to wipe. So a lot of flowers spawned here. That's because people were getting hit and things like that. But generally speaking, you just want to maintain your dots on as much things as you can and maintain that Wrath of Consumption. You see, I'm maintaining 5 Wrath of Consumption stack for a really long time, which is really going to increase your DPS output. Now, you might think this is really hard, maintaining agony on so many mobs, maintaining corruptions and things like that on so many mobs. And yes, it is actually very hard to do. It's not easy to do a multi-target boss fight like this, to maintain your agonies in a fashion like this. But the thing is, the thing that I'm going to recommend to you guys to do on this fight, if you're not so comfortable, is you don't have to run Soul Effigy if you feel like it's a little bit too much for you to dot. Sometimes I do let dots fall off my Soul Effigy simply because when there's ads out about the room, I just don't have the globals to dot my Soul Effigy anymore. It's just not worth it for me to put those dots on it because I have so many shards to deal with. I have so many ads that I want to dot to keep my Wrath of Consumption up. I have so many different things that I have to do in order to maximize my DPS on this boss fight that sometimes just dotting Soul Effigy isn't the thing that you're wanting to do. So you see here, I dot the Plasma Spore, I refresh my Wrath of Consumption, I'm keeping, agonies on all the bosses to the best of my ability, keeping my Soul Effigy dotted, and every single time an ad spawns, you see I'm instantly dotting it, maintaining my Wrath of Consumption, and that's something you really have to do as an Affliction Warlock if you want to maximize your DPS. If I didn't have my Wrath of Consumption buff up this entire fight, which I basically do, I basically have a 5 stack the entire fight, there's no way I would have been able to do as much damage as I'm doing. So that's one of the things I really want to highlight. Even though I'm maintaining damage on the boss, there's a lot more going into it than just that, okay? There's a lot more going into a boss fight than just maintaining your dots on the boss and, killing ads kind of when you want to. There's a lot that goes in as Affliction Warlock because there's so many different mechanics that allow you to interact with ads. There's so many different things that allow you to interact with the boss that are really going to separate you from other Warlocks in the game. So you see here again, the things are spawning. I instantly run around and dot them again just to get my Wrath of Consumption proc back up. Maintaining my agonies on the boss. I'm really prioritizing agony, and you see, I'm not even worried about refreshing on pandemic timers, right? I'm just worried about, do I have a spare global? Okay, I do. Let's use it on whatever dot I can. Do I have shards? I have a couple shards, or let's just go for a dump here. Let's dot some ads. I'm not overly worried about my dot timers because I know if I just maintain my dots and I don't let my agonies falls, the damage is just going to come. The damage is going to be there. It doesn't matter if I sit there drain lifing, it's not going to increase my damage a whole lot. I'm just really at this point worried about my dot timers, worried about maintaining dots on the ads when they do spawn, and the boss ends up going down here. So this fight is pretty hectic, right? There's a lot going on, there's a lot of things that you have to worry about, and there's a lot of mechanics, but as a Warlock, especially, this is something you should really work on and something you should focus on is the multi-dotting aspect of a Warlock. It really is what Warlock specializes as. It really is something that Warlock is very good at, multi-dotting, but there are a couple things I guys want you to take away from this video, and the main thing is actually not the multi-dotting. The multi-dotting is not something I really want you to take away from this video because the multi-dotting is just something that's going to happen. You're going to get better at it over time. It's not the main thing that I wanted to really highlight. The highlight of this video is how to interact with ads on a boss fight. The way that Warlock can interact with ads on a boss fight. And the way that you want to interact with ads on the boss fight is you want to be using them to abuse Drain Soul. You want to be using them to abuse Wrath of Consumption. You want to be using them to abuse Soul Flame. You want to abuse them in order to gain all of these different damage buffs, in order to gain all these Wrath of Consumption, all of your, souls and everything. And you really want to make sure that you're doing that, because if you're able to do that, and then you're also able to multi-dot, because you can make multi-dot easier, right? You don't have to run Siphon Life. You can run something different just to make your life a little bit easier. You don't have to run Soul Effigy, but if you're not doing the extra stuff to the ads, your DPS is going to be way lower. Like, I could just take a dot off my bar and I still would have done tons of damage, right? It doesn't matter about my multi-dotting. It's all about my interaction with the ads. It's all about how you play the boss itself. So that's something I really want to highlight because I really feel like it's an important part of Nighthold. And the reason it's an important part of Nighthold is just because there's so many ads on all the bosses. So I hope you guys like this video. I hope you guys can give it a like and things like that. Subscribe to the channel, and I will see you guys next time.